Mike Tyson was right, and I was wrong. You know, you guys know the whole story about Shark Week and...
Before the fight between Iron Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, Dana White had been overly pessimistic about the chances of a favorable outcome for Tyson.
The Jake Paul thing is, when he had the type of record he has, we're gonna go that fucking...
It was ultimately revealed that Jake Paul and Mike Tyson deceived 70,000 fans who attended the event at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, and over 60 million households who stayed up to watch their scripted battle. Dana White was hardly surprised by this revelation, as the major consequence was the tarnishing of Tyson's legacy and respect. White had warned Tyson against the possibility of a knockout, which Tyson assured would never happen. Apparently Tyson was right, and I was wrong, White commented. He was right because he knew the outcome and knew there was no knockout coming. That was the idea of the script. White, the Ultimate Fighting Championship boss, had been so negative about the fight beforehand that he said he would have stopped it himself if he could, ahead of Tyson's return to the ring at 58 years old. On Friday, the UFC CEO expressed genuine concern that the former heavyweight boxing champion was potentially risking his health by fighting Jake Paul in an 8-round main event broadcast on Netflix.
Mike, you're basically 60 years old, and he's like, you honestly think this fucking kid's gonna do anything to me? He's not good. He's not gonna fucking knock me out.
Dana White felt even more provoked by the revelation that the fight was scripted, especially after recalling how Mike Tyson had spent the entire 8-month build-up convincing combat sports professionals like himself that he had enough skill, power, and athleticism to conquer Jake Paul. The bout was widely decried and criticized for its lack of action and drama. It became apparent that Tyson, at his age, lacked the youth to keep up with Paul. Instead of a dramatic showdown, Paul controlled the contest with his jab, settling for a points victory, contrary to the knockout scenario that White had feared.
Hard time walking up the stairs, he had a knee brace on, and Jake Paul couldn't do anything to him. He made a ton of money, and I know people are mad you stayed home on a Saturday night, but you didn't pay for it.
Before the fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, Dana White had been skeptical about the chances of a favorable outcome for Tyson. His concern grew when it was revealed that Paul and Tyson had staged the fight, deceiving 70,000 fans at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, and over 60 million households who stayed up to watch the event. This revelation confirmed White's fears that Tyson's legacy might suffer. "Knock me out," Tyson had confidently declared, knowing the fight was scripted.
Everybody makes money, you know? Jake Paul is fucking... You know, I don't have to tell you guys, you guys know. Mike Tyson is the A+++.
This provoked Dana White, who remembered Tyson spending 8 months convincing professionals like himself that he had the skill, power, and athleticism to defeat Paul. The bout was criticized for its lack of action and drama, with Tyson visibly struggling to keep up with his younger opponent. Paul controlled the contest with his jab, winning by points rather than a knockout, which had been White's main concern. Despite not being a barn burner, Tyson didn't absorb much damage and ultimately lost by decision without suffering a single knockdown. White admitted he was wrong about his forecast, fearing Paul might knock out the former champion. "Mike was right, and I was wrong," White said during the UFC 309 post-fight press conference. He knew there was no knockout happening because that was the script. Jake Paul couldn't do anything to him. He made a ton of money. People are mad, but they didn't pay for it. White's initial concern was for Tyson's health, given his age and physical condition. However, the outcome showed that Tyson was right. He knew he wouldn't get hurt. Following the event, Paul claimed he didn't go for the knockout because he didn't want to hurt Tyson, a statement White found hard to believe. Nevertheless, he was glad Tyson left the ring unharmed. The fight, which was broadcast on Netflix, generated significant viewership numbers. Despite the criticism, 60 million households tuned in for Paul versus Tyson, with 50 million watching the women's bout between Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. While the main event may not have been memorable, it was still one of the most talked about fights of the year. White addressed the disappointment surrounding the fight. "If you didn't think that's the way the fight would play out, I don't know what you expected. Mike's almost 60 years old. He's Mike Tyson, but he's 60 years old. You knew what you were going to get, but you can't get mad. It was free on Netflix." White, who has had a contentious relationship with Paul, was unsurprised by the outcome. The UFC boss has often clashed with Paul over his calls for better pay for fighters. This fight, Tyson's second since 2020, echoed the criticism of his match against Roy Jones Jr., where many argued both fighters were too old. White had advised against that fight too, citing Tyson's age and health concerns. Reflecting on Tyson's previous bout, White recalled setting him up on Shark Week. "I begged him not to do the Roy Jones fight. You're too old. I love you. I didn't want to see you take hits. Instead, I set him up on Shark Week. He got paid good money, but he almost flipped out on the last day. He was ready to kill everyone on the boat because he had to jump in with sharks." In the end, White's concerns were proven right. Tyson, despite his age, managed to avoid serious harm in the ring against Paul, but the fight highlighted the ongoing debate about the legitimacy and safety of such matchups. Tyson's legacy, though intact, was again brought into question, with critics arguing these fights serve more as spectacles than true athletic contests. Before the fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, Dana White expressed deep skepticism about Tyson's chances. White feared for the health of the 58-year-old former champion, predicting a potential knockout by the younger Paul. The fight, which ended up being scripted, deceived fans at AT&T Stadium and over 60 million households. Critics panned the bout for its lack of action, with Paul controlling the match and winning by points. Despite the concerns, Tyson avoided significant damage and lost by decision without suffering a knockdown. White admitted his mistake in predicting a disastrous outcome. "Mike was right, and I was wrong. He knew there was no knockout happening because that was the script," White said. Paul claimed he didn't aim for a knockout to avoid hurting Tyson, a statement White found questionable, but was relieved that Tyson remained unharmed. The fight, streamed on Netflix, attracted massive viewership, but left many fans disappointed. White, who has a contentious relationship with Paul over fighter pay issues, was unsurprised by the outcome, emphasizing that Tyson, at nearly 60 years old, was not a fair match for the 27-year-old Paul.